there will always be something to critique about the past generation or the former generation or the next generation. But the question we have to ask ourselves is this: is the only thing we're willing to do sit on the sidelines and write off an entire generation because it's challenging for us? Or will we be ones to, with open hands, say, God, here I am, send me to be a voice of influence, a voice of wisdom in someone's life, because what you've given me is not just for me alone, it's to share. Yeah, remember that we started with, we are wise when we learn from our elders, and we are wise when we invest in our youth. And listen, if we are the elders that are doing the investing, the goal is not to show up with this condescending posture that says, I just know better. Right? Here's the reality. You might know better. But what the next generation needs from us in the midst of circumstances around us that we can't even fully understand, what they need from us is not a posture that says, I know better, but I believe in you. I see you. I know that what you're going through, I might not be able to understand, but with my experience and your season of life, I want to partner with you. I want to invest in you. And by definition, a sound investment does what? It grows. Can you look at the next generation and say, I'm so for you that I want to show up in your life in a way that sees you grow? And you know what that does for a young person? It gives them hope. It gives them hope. Through the wisdom of our elders, God gives us hope for the future. And if you are an elder in the room, you can turn that idea on its head. Through our wisdom as elders, God gives the next generation hope for the future. And I got to tell you, being on the receiving end of this kind of hope, it absolutely changes the game. Like I said, my wife and I welcomed our very first child into the world this past year, and the response from our church community has just been incredible. It's been honestly overwhelming, as dozens of you have come up to say a kind word or hold Xander, and especially the parents in the room who come and just tap us on the shoulder, and words unspoken that communicate, hey, we've been where you are. And we understand the weird mix of exhaustion and terror and beauty and feeling drained and wanting to keep going but not being sure if we can. So many of you have been so generous. But there's one particular family in our church that has stopped Carly and I, not once, but twice in the lobby, which that's when you know something's up. They've stopped us twice to give us this gift of children's books. And every single time they tell us, hey, these were books that our kids really enjoyed when they were Xander's age. We hope that Xander enjoys them too. And Carly and I have been blown away by that. But you know what that couple communicated to us without even having to say words? Even though there was a conversation, what they communicated to us was, hey, we see you. We've been where you are. This helped. And so we want to pass this on to you. We believe in you. We are for you. And so keep going. And every single time, you know what Carly and I walked away with? Hope. A little bit more hope than we had before. See, when we prayerfully allow the advice and guidance and support of mentors and parents and coaches and elders, whether they're a few years ahead of us or decades ahead of us, we are leaning on generations of collective wisdom. Where do we think they got it, right? We are leaning on generations of collective wisdom. Through their wisdom, we gain insight, we gain perspective, we gain hope for our future. And so my question is, who are the elders in your life? Who are the people God has placed around you who are further along than you are? And if you don't have those people, the question becomes, what can you do to find them? And here is what the answer is not. It is not get up out of spaces like this and go to brunch or coffee and just hope that those people intersect our paths. That we just kind of bump into them, right? That would make an awesome Hallmark movie, but generally that is not how real life actually works. What have we been talking about wisdom in this series? We have to pursue it with intentionality. And in this case, if wisdom is personified in someone older than us, we have to pursue that relationship. It's not just going to happen. Now, all of that said, a quick word to those in the room who might actually be the ones further along on the trail. Maybe we are the elder. Again, older by decades, older by years, it doesn't matter. While the biblical guidance is the same for us. Listen to the voices of wisdom who are further along than we are. Receive that wisdom. Did you know the Bible speaks even more about our passing the baton of wisdom to those younger than us? The Bible has more to say about that. Again, we are not only wise when we listen to our elders, we are wise when we invest in our youth. Listen to God's command to the nation of Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 6. He says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children." Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit up at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. Do whatever you need to do. Why? Because the onus is on the older generation to teach the younger generation about who God is and model with our lives what it looks like to love him and follow him, not just dabble, but with all of who we are. Did you know that every single person who is younger than you looks to you and draws conclusions about who God is? And you might say, Ross, that's for pastors, that's for people on staff, that's for gateway leaders. If you are in this room and you would raise your hand and say, I follow Jesus, maybe not perfectly, but I'm doing my best every single day to align more of my life to his, the reality is there are people in your life who are looking at you and concluding what must be true about God based on how we live our lives. And if that's heavy, it should be heavy. There's a weightiness to it. And sometimes you might hear in response to that, maybe rejection or sitting in the tension of that, older generations who say things like, well, kids these days. Right, Ross, I'd lean into that, but kids these days, their work ethic isn't quite what it was in my generation. They don't have the same values. They don't whatever, fill in the blank. And here's the thing, there will always be something to critique about the past generation or the former generation or the next generation. But the question we have to ask ourselves is this: is the only thing we're willing to do sit on the sidelines and write off an entire generation because it's challenging for us? Or will we be ones to, with open hands, say, God, here I am, send me to be a voice of influence, a voice of wisdom in someone's life, because what you've given me is not just for me alone, it's to share. It's to share with other people.